Between 1989 and 1992, 7 young travellers aged between 19 and 22 vanished along the highways stretching from Sydney to Melbourne. Among them were 3 Germans, 2 Britons and 2 Australians. Some journeyed in pairs, others alone, all drawn by the promise of open roads and adventure. They were last seen hitchhiking. Each was intercepted, taken deep into the isolation of the Belanglo State Forest, where the landscape turned from sanctuary to grave. He didn't live in the forest. He lived in the suburbs. He worked for the RTA. He drove trucks. He mowed lawns. But Ivan Milat had a method, and it began long before Belanglo. This is Belanglo, Rituals of the Lost, Episode 2, The Milat Method. Ivan Robert Marco Milat was born on December 27, 1944, in Guildford, New South Wales. He was the 5th of 14 children. His father, Stjepan Marko Milat, was a Croatian immigrant. His mother, Margaret Patterson, was Australian. The Milat family lived in poverty, cottages with dirt floors, sheds and rural homes across New South Wales. The children helped run a market garden. They were raised with knives and guns as toys. Ivan's father worked long hours as a wharf labourer. He was exhausted, volatile, and often violent. His mother Margaret had a temper of her own. Discipline was physical. Arguments were loud. Escape, impossible. Ivan showed signs early of antisocial behaviour, cruelty to animals, a fascination with weapons. At age 13, he was sent to a residential school. By 17, he was in juvenile detention for theft. By 22, he was serving time for armed robbery. Criminal history. Before the forest gave up its dead, there was Margaret Patterson. In 1971, Ivan abducted 2 hitchhikers near Liverpool railway station. He raped one. She was 15. Margaret and Greta escaped at a petrol station cafe. Milat was arrested and charged with rape and armed robbery. While awaiting trial, he faked his suicide, leaving his shoes at the Gap, a known suicide site. He fled to Queensland, then to New Zealand, but returned when his mother became ill. Charges were dropped. Margaret had testified that Ivan Milat abducted and raped her near Liverpool station, but the system turned away. Margaret died in 2025, August, after a stroke. She was the first known survivor. Her voice was the warning no one heeded. He continued working as a truck driver. He was known as reliable, quiet, but he had a record: theft, assault, attempted rape. In 1977, he allegedly tried to rape and murder 2 more hitchhikers. He was never charged. Behavioural patterns. Milat's method was rehearsed. He approached backpackers along the Hume Highway, offered rides, gained trust, then diverted into Belanglo. He used a .22 caliber Ruger rifle, a Bowie knife, rope and gags. Victims were bound, silenced and buried. The violence was not impulsive, it was structured. He chose isolated areas. He returned to the same forest. He varied his methods: stabbing, shooting, decapitation, but kept the ritual: control silence, placement. Family dynamics. The Milat family was large, 10 brothers, many known to police. They grew up handling firearms, playing shooting games. Ivan was one of many, but he stood apart. His brother Boris later said, "I knew at 10 he'd be a killer. It was built into him." Boris described Ivan as cold, calculating and detached. The family protected him, denied involvement, and closed ranks. Ivan's home life was violent. His social life was limited. He didn't drink, he didn't smoke, he didn't socialise. But he watched, he planned, he rehearsed. Misses and mistresses. Ivan Milat didn't just violate strangers, he violated blood. The rot began at home. In the 1970s, Ivan met Karen Duck. She was 6 weeks pregnant to another man. She never told Ivan. They married in 1984, Karen later describing him as controlling, violent and obsessed with power. She left him in 1987, afraid for her life. But Karen wasn't the only woman drawn into Ivan's orbit. Behind closed doors, Ivan began a year-long affair with Maureen, his brother Wally's wife. Maureen later said he was charming and attentive. She admitted the affair publicly years later with regret and clarity. "That's a part of my life I'm not proud of, but I had been intimate with Ivan." The betrayal ran deeper. Ivan reportedly also had an affair with Shirley, the wife of another Milat brother. Details remain shadowed, but the pattern is clear. Ivan's violence wasn't just physical, it was relational. He fractured trust. He seduced within bloodlines. He made the family table a crime scene. Boris, Ivan's brother, who also lost his wife to Ivan, Marilyn, wasn't directly involved in the police investigation that led to Ivan Milat's arrest, but he became a crucial voice in the aftermath, especially in challenging the family's denial and helping the public understand Ivan's psyche. Boris's role in the Ivan Milat case. Not a formal informant, Boris didn't provide evidence that led to Ivan's conviction. The key breakthrough came from one of his victims who escaped, which we'll get into later on. But he was crucial in public reckoning. Boris was the only Milat family member to publicly denounce Ivan. He gave interviews for 60 Minutes and other outlets, calling Ivan evil to the last bone and describing him as a psychopath who was on a one-way trip from childhood. He said, "These mongrels hate my guts, but someone has to tell these mums and dads why their kids died." While most of the Milat family insisted Ivan was framed, Boris stood apart, saying the evidence was so clear even a 12-year-old child could put it together. His testimony added emotional depth to the case, helping shift public perception from myth to reality. He became a kind of moral counterweight to the family's silence. So while Boris didn't help police take Ivan down in a legal sense, he was instrumental in breaking the family's wall of denial and giving voice to the victims' families. After Ivan's arrest in 1994, the family split. Most defended him. They said he was framed. They said police lied. But Maureen and Boris broke the silence. "To me, he died 20 years ago. I have no feelings whatsoever," Maureen said. "He's just a person that died." Misses and mistresses, wives and betrayal. The forest wasn't the only place Ivan Milat left bodies behind. Early suspicions. After Joanne and Caroline were found, police formed Task Force Air. They reviewed missing persons. Patterns emerged. All victims were backpackers. All had vanished near the Hume Highway. Milat's name surfaced early. He had a record. He lived near the highway. He owned firearms, but there was no direct evidence. Police began surveillance. They tracked his movements, interviewed his co-workers. They found inconsistencies. Gaps, stories that didn't align. The breakthrough. The breakthrough came from Paul Onions, a British backpacker who had escaped Milat in 1990. He had accepted a ride, felt uneasy. When Milat pulled a gun, Onions ran. Onions reported the incident years later. He saw news of the murders. He contacted Australian police, and his testimony matched the method. Police raided Milat's home. They found weapons, camping gear, items belonging to victims. The method had left traces. Arrest and trial. Ivan Milat was arrested on May 22, 1994. He was charged with 7 counts of murder. The trial lasted 15 weeks. Evidence included ballistics, forensic matches, and survivor testimony. Milat denied everything. On July 27, 1996, he was convicted. 7 life sentences, no parole. He never confessed. But he did write. Amanda Howard, criminologist and true crime author, began corresponding with Milat in the 1990s. He responded long, rambling letters, narcissistic, cold, calculating. He never admitted guilt, but he revealed the man behind the method. Ivan Milat didn't live in the forest. He lived in plain sight. His method was rehearsed. His violence was structured. Joanne and Caroline were the first to be found, but they weren't the first to die. Next time, we trace the others. James Gibson, Deborah Everest, Simone Schmidl and more. Episode 3, The Backpackers Vanish. If you're enjoying this series, give us a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and hit that notification bell so you're aware when we're posting up more of the Backpacker Killer series.